Hey folks, Bohas from Independent Solutions here. Israel's battle with hyperinflation in the 1980s is a dramatic chapter in economic history. By 1985, the nation faced an economic crisis of epic proportions. Inflation soared to 445%, threatening Israeli society. Prices spiraled out of control, eroding savings and pushing millions to poverty. The Israeli shekel had become almost worthless. A bold and unconventional plan emerged, altering Israel's economic destiny. The 1973 Yom Kippur War, a surprise attack on Israel by Egypt and Syria, had a profound impact on the nation's economy. The war, though won by Israel, came at a heavy price. Military spending skyrocketed, draining the treasury. The government resorted to printing more money. This fueled inflationary pressures for years. The Yom Kippur War marked a turning point in Israel's economic history. The 1983 bank stock crisis was a major financial crisis that shook Israel to its core. It served as a stark warning sign of the deep-seated problems plaguing the nation's economy. The crisis erupted when the value of bank shares on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange plummeted dramatically. This collapse was triggered by a confluence of factors, including high inflation, government intervention in the stock market, and a lack of transparency in the banking sector. The crisis led to a loss of confidence in the banking system, as depositors feared for the safety of their savings. Long lines snaked outside banks as people desperately tried to withdraw their money. The government, in a desperate attempt to stem the panic, was forced to nationalize several major banks. The bank stock crisis had a devastating impact on the Israeli economy. It deepened the recession, fueled inflation, and eroded public trust in the government's ability to manage the economy. By 1984, Israel's economic woes had reached a fever pitch. Hyperinflation, a term used to describe runaway inflation, had gripped the nation. The inflation rate, which had been hovering in the triple digits, soared to an astronomical 445%. The shekel, Israel's currency, was in freefall. Its value plummeted against other major currencies. The effects of hyperinflation were devastating. Prices for basic goods and services skyrocketed, often changing multiple times a day. People rushed to spend their money as quickly as possible, fearing that it would be worthless tomorrow. The economic chaos led to widespread social unrest. Strikes and protests became commonplace as workers demanded higher wages to keep pace with the soaring cost of living. The situation seemed hopeless. Israel, once a beacon of hope and prosperity in the Middle East, was teetering on the brink of economic collapse. Section 5. Failed attempts at stabilization. Desperate to tame the hyperinflation monster, successive Israeli governments had implemented a series of austerity measures. These measures, however, proved to be too little, too late. They often focused on short-term fixes rather than addressing the root causes of the economic crisis. One common approach was to impose price controls on essential goods and services. The government hoped that by capping prices, it could rein in inflation. However, price controls only led to shortages, as businesses were unwilling to sell their products at a loss. Another strategy was to devalue the shekel, making Israeli exports cheaper and thus more competitive in the global market. While devaluation did provide a temporary boost to exports, it also made imports more expensive, further fueling inflation. These failed attempts at stabilization only served to erode public confidence in the government's ability to manage the economy. It became clear that a more drastic and comprehensive solution was needed. Section 6. The 1985 Economic Stabilization Plan, a bold gamble. In July 1985, a new government, led by Prime Minister Shimon Peres and Finance Minister Yitzhak Modai, took office. Faced with an economic meltdown, the new government knew that bold and decisive action was needed. They embarked on a risky and unconventional path, implementing a comprehensive economic stabilization plan that would become known as the 1985 Economic Miracle. The plan was the brainchild of a group of economists led by Emmanuel Sharon, a respected academic who had studied at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. Sharon and his team believed that Israel's economic problems stemmed from excessive government intervention and a lack of fiscal discipline. The plan, a radical departure from previous policies, aimed to stabilize the economy by tackling inflation head-on, reducing government spending, and liberalizing the economy. It was a gamble, a leap of faith that required the government to make tough choices and demand sacrifices from the Israeli people. Section 7. Key measures of the plan. The 1985 Economic Stabilization Plan consisted of a series of interconnected measures designed to address the root causes of Israel's economic crisis. One of the most significant measures was a sharp reduction in government spending. The government slashed subsidies, froze public sector wages, and reduced its role in the economy. This fiscal discipline was essential to curb inflation as it reduced the government's need to print money. To further control inflation, the government imposed a freeze on prices and wages. This measure, though controversial, was seen as necessary to break the cycle of hyperinflationary expectations. In a bid to liberalize the economy and promote competition, the government began to dismantle the complex system of price controls and foreign exchange restrictions that had hampered private enterprise for decades. It also began to privatize state-owned companies, transferring them to the private sector where they would be subject to market forces. To Section 8, the road to recovery. The 1985 Economic Stabilization Plan was not an instant cure-all. It was a painful process that required sacrifices from all segments of Israeli society. The initial impact of the plan was a sharp recession. Unemployment rose and many businesses struggled to adapt to the new economic realities. However, as the plan began to take hold, the economy slowly began to stabilize. Inflation, which had been the most pressing problem, began to fall dramatically. Within 2 years, it had dropped from over 400% to under 20%. The stabilization of the economy restored confidence in the Israeli shekel. The currency, which had been in freefall, began to appreciate against other major currencies. Foreign investment, which had dried up during the years of hyperinflation, began to flow back into the country. Section 9. Conclusion: Lessons from Israel's economic miracle. The 1985 Economic Stabilization Plan is widely regarded as a remarkable success story. It's a testament to the power of sound economic policies and the willingness of a nation to confront its challenges head-on. The plan pulled Israel back from the brink of economic collapse and set the stage for 2 decades of sustained economic growth. It transformed Israel into a high-tech powerhouse and a magnet for foreign investment. The lessons from Israel's economic miracle have resonated far beyond its borders. The plan has served as a model for other countries grappling with hyperinflation and economic crises. It is a story of courage, determination, and the enduring belief in the power of human ingenuity to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles.